Hello, I'm Cal Gallagher, and I'm a photographer, among other things. And I thought I would once again do another tutorial on HDR photography and image combination and post-production retouching. And there's no cookbook to this, and there's certainly no workflow that is better than the other. So it's kind of just best to show you with each image how I did it. And by no means is my way the right way. It's certainly it's just a scaffolding to follow, and feel free to veer off in any direction or tangent and expound upon it. And good luck. So anyway, here are the 5 images I took in the Bahamas of the beach scene, and this image on the side here is what the camera saw and thought that would have been the appropriate exposure. And then I stopped down with the shutter, actually 2 stops, and took this picture, and then this is 1 stop down with the shutter, and took this photograph. And so those are 2 under and 1 under, and then I've got 1 over and 2 over as far as the exposure goes. And then, well, now I'm going to close this out, and we'll combine these in Photomatics to create our HDR image. And I'm just going to select all 5, and these were shot in RAW with a Nikon D3. And I don't take anything in here. I don't do that 32-bit secondary image. What I do is I have this align source images by horizontal and vertical shifts ticked, and this I leave unticked, the ghosting reduce ghosting artifacts, and pretty much everything else I leave alone, and I hit the pre-process button. The less Photomatics has to do, the better. If something's going to go wrong, or something's going to become grainy or infiltrated, it's going to happen probably when you're asking too much of the program. Especially, it kind of depends on how much RAM you have in your computer and your processing speeds. But anyway, with all that aside, the image that's getting ready to pop up on the screen is the pre-processed image. And it's funny because the first image that comes up lasts for about 2 seconds, and it's basically all of the junk that you don't want. And if you look at it for a second, you're like, oh man, that really sucks. Well, it does. That's what you don't want. And it only comes up for a couple of seconds. Here it is right there. And then comes up the blended image in Photomatics. Now, let me set the default. I'm going to go back to default settings in Photomatics Pro. This is interesting. Photomatics is a beginning process program. It's not an end process program. They'd like you to think that, and a lot of photographers do use it as their final touch-up to an image, but it is by no means where the image should be when Photomatics is done with it. All Photomatics does for me is blend my exposures together with the HDR algorithm, and other than that, it's all done with Photoshop. But this bar right here at the bottom in Photomatics is their presets. It's kind of starting places that they like, and all it's doing is sliding these sliders in different directions. And so all of these magical settings here are nothing but different combinations of these sliders, which you should be working with manually. But I left it on this enhancer grunge because this is one of the styles that I see a lot of out there. And honestly, if this is the end of your process here, it's going to be rewarding in the beginning, but later on it's not. I mean, if you put the time in to the photograph, you'll be rewarded with the quality. And so I guess I'm just going around circles here, but make this the beginning of the photograph, not the end. And so let's click on a couple presets. Again, this is all Photomatics people getting inside your head and telling you what they think you should be doing. But let's just go back to the default, and I'm going to close this out because I've never used it and probably never will. First thing I usually do is I take up my smoothing, my light smoothing, all the way up to 100%, and I take my strength on the HDR blending up to 100%, and then usually I'll tweak my color saturation to, just wherever I like it. But I'm just going to go probably right into here, bring up my luminosity and micro contrast. A little bit more here. And I'm going to stop here with Photomatix because I'm done and I'm moving on. And there are tons of other settings in here, things you can monkey with. It's just, there's no need to get into any of that. I leave them at the factory defaults and I hit process and I'm moving on to Photoshop where I can do some real photo retouching. Okay, here is my HDR image via Photomatix, and it needs to be saved still, so I'm going to save it in our master batch as an 8-bit TIFF. There's a lot of filters in Photoshop that don't work in 16-bit, so I just go ahead and use it in 8-bit. Anyway, let's move on. I'm going to go use Photoshop CS5, and I'm going to open up our HDR image. And here are the 5 exposures over here, and here's the tone mapped HDR image. Let's open it. Takes a few seconds to think about it. Okay, there we go. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do is what I always do, and that is I'm going to change the background here to black. Okay. I frame and matte most of my stuff on black, so I like to work with it how I think I'm going to see it. Alright, let's get started. I have my background layer over here, and what I immediately do is I go to Command J and I copy that, so that way I'm never destroying my base layer. I'll have it for, you know, reference anywhere along the way. So I'm even going to go as far as to turn that background layer off. I'm going to work in layer 1, and the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to convert this image from the digital SLR 4:3 format to the 16:9 format. I like the movie aspect ratio of imagery much more than the digital SLR aspect ratio of the 4:3. So with that said, I'm not going to crop this. I'm going to distort it to fit what I need, much like the optics would in a cinema camera. I'm going to go to Content Aware Scale, and notice over here on the amount, I'm going to take this sucker down to about 16%. And then I'm going to basically mush this down into the 16:9 or something very close format. And I haven't lost any information, I've just compressed it. Now, have I distorted a few things here? Absolutely. Mostly the sky. So I really haven't changed how my image looks, but I really like this aspect ratio much more than the original photography, well, the original photographic camera ratio. And this is going to take a few minutes to process, so I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I'm back. That took a little while to render. I have 8 gigabytes of RAM on a little bit of an older computer, but for some reason this launch of Photoshop is running a little bit slow, and it's not slow enough for me to restart the tutorial, but a little bit slow, so bear with me. Alright, so here is the aspect ratio of the filming, and then here's the aspect ratio of photography. And you know, to me it has to do with the eye and the brain and how we perceive imagery. And in this photograph here, it's a great shot, if I do say so myself. The eye has to travel what I feel like an inordinate amount of distance to enjoy the entire image. It has to follow these lines up. It has to go over to the sun and into this foreground to absorb all of the information that's being given to the eye via this picture. if I mush it down into the cinematic, I'm cropping here while I speak. If I mush this down into the cinematic ratio, the eye doesn't have to wander so far north and south on this photograph. Granted, you still have your east and west, but to me, it just makes for a visually more aesthetically pleasing image. So, with that said, I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping things here and clean up some spots. I'm going to use this Band-Aid tool here. I've got a couple little dust boogers, and I've got this hair that must have been on my lens. And that's all I see right now. If I find any more, I'll certainly go back to the Band-Aid tool and clean it up. Alright, what's the first thing to do here? I'm going to copy this layer, Command J, make a new layer. That way I never fall farther than the layer behind this if something horrible goes wrong. Okay, let's go with the paintbrush selection tool. I'm going to grab the sky in this image. Man, this computer's really running slow right now. And in this little area right here where it dips down below the horizon line, I'm going to go with the Option key pushed. And this is a pretty intuitive little tool. It seems to know where you want it to go and where you don't want it to go. It takes a few seconds to process. It will quite often smooth out that line for you. There you go. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit Command J. I'm sorry, Command C and then Command V, and this pastes a copy of just my sky on the top layer. So now any manipulations that I do will only be to the top layer. So let me go up here to Levels and work only in this layer here. I'm going to bring that sky down just a little bit in color. I'm going to compress my lights and darks ever so slightly, and there's before retouching and there's after. Okay, I like that. I'm going to go Command E and bring that together. I'm also going to bring this layer down into my layer under it. Now Command J to take it back up to all being in one image. Alright, let's grab this tool again here and let's do the lower portion of this image. And it's a little dark. The whole image is a little dark right now, but I'm going to just select this area right in here. I'm leaving the water alone, and I'm going to go Command V and Command C, and now I have this layer of just pretty much the beach. So let's go ahead and let's lighten this. I'm just bringing my beach up. There we go. Not too much. And you see this right here? I'm going to fix that. So it's where my selection bled over. Alright, let's go ahead and fix that now. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to put a mask layer on here. There we go. And my apologies, this computer is really running slow right now and it's starting to kind of piss me off. And as you know, with a mask, you paint in black and white. White reveals nothing from underneath and black reveals everything from underneath. So let's go up here and we're painting in our mask now, not on our layer. And I'm going to feather out this image, this selection, into the image underneath. I would have done this anyway. A little bit of hand time here. It's all good. There we go. Excellent. Okay, looks good. Okay, let me combine these two layers. and then Command J. And as you see with my workflow, I'm always preserving the step before what I'm doing now one layer down. So if I need to get back to it, if I really hate what I did or something goes wonky, I can always get back to just one step behind. So it gives me the flexibility and I guess the bravery to keep experimenting and not knowing I'm going to fall all the way back to starting over. So I save in steps. And also remember that Command Z is your best key combination. Command Z always takes you back and undoes the last thing that you just did. And you can set Photoshop up to do 1 or 100 last steps. And I usually have mine set for about 10. So I can do Command Z, Command Z, Command Z up to 10 times and go 10 steps back. So, all right, let's go ahead here. We got the image looking pretty good. Let's do this. I'm going to do a little bit of dodging and burning in this foreground. I'm just lighten this area right here up, and it's just an area I think needs to jump a little more. Maybe this area right here. I'm liking that. Okay. And let me combine that Command E with the layer underneath, and then Command J to make me a new layer. And now I'm going to lighten just a few areas in the clouds. Not a whole lot. I just want to accentuate a little bit of this in the light. Okay, very good. Command E and then Command J. All right, now I'm going to go into filters and I'm going to add a lens flare effect because you got a lot of negative space over here. And let me move this out of the way for a second. I've got a lot of negative space over here, and there's plenty to look at. It's a great shot, but I just kind of feel like something needs to be in there, so I'm going to use this lens flare filter. Now, the folks at Photoshop must think that I've got this incredibly great vision because this is as big as I can get this dialog box. So let's see where the lens flare ends up. I've got it set to about 100%. Let me apply it, and not so good. A little off where the sun is. I'm going to move it over just a little bit. Let me go back here, filter again, one more shot. Lens flare. Alright, let's see what happens. Alright, there it is, pretty good. Okay. You see what this did? I mean, this put all this crazy stuff on the picture, but just for me, and this is a personal preference here, I feel like this kind of gives it more of a cinematic photo quality effect, and this is the sun bouncing off the inner elements of this lens. So, and it gives the eye some more to look at over here. Is it a bit much? Yeah, but it's kind of a bold step. So here we are. I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to go up to the next one. Now this does wash out this a little bit. So watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take a little bit of the contrast and just a little boost right there to kind of bring back a little bit of what this filter washed out over here, but it's really working well for me on this side over here. So Command E and then Command J to keep that layer on top. Alright, now I'm going to take you into a third-party photo suite called Tiffin DFX. Tiffin makes a great set of filters. They make a horrible interface, extremely clunky and slow. But I have enjoyed their filters since version 1, and so what it does is this pops up, and it's kind of blurry because I've got this set to not render 100% to save time and processing speed. But here is pretty much a facsimile of the artwork. Okay, I'm going to do this first. I'm going to go to gels. I'm going to choose Roscoe gels. And I'm going to use a color temperature orange, a CTO 1/4 filter. And let me show you what this does. Look at this picture here. And I have made this into a sunset. I believe this is actually a sunrise. But by adding color temperature orange, you can take out that morning blue and make it look more like a morning, look more like an evening sunset. So with that said, there's the morning. There's that kind of bluish kind of morning light, and then with that there's that kind of orange dusty kind of sunset light. So I'm going to leave that on there. I'm going to create a new layer in Tiffin, and I'm going to go to my light And I'm going to use an edge glow on this. Not much of an edge glow, probably an edge glow 4 or 3. Here, let's do a 3. You see what that does? You see how that is just gives a little bit of snap to the edges of the clouds and where the sunlight's meeting the water and the sand. So that's pretty cool. And let's do one more thing. I've got a custom filter in here under the vignette, and it's my little black line, soft vignette line around the image. And what that does is, you can see if I turn it on and off, it just puts a hint of a vignette around the edge of the image and kind of gives the whole image a very slight pincushion type of look, like it's a little bit elevated from the background. And I like it. It's very subtle, and it's one of my little signature pieces there on most of my art. So let's close this out, and it takes a second to render, and there we go. Okay, now let's go back to that color temperature orange, and they also make a color temperature blue, which can cool things down. But let me show you what this CTO filter did. Here it is, a sunset, nice and warm, and there it is, no sunset, pretty much sunrise, more bluish. So I'm kind of digging the CTO. Now, what else do we have to do here? I'm gonna, in a move just to save most things here, I'm gonna combine all my layers, Command E, because I'm liking where I'm at, Command J, and I'm going to bring up the value of this whole image just a little bit. Not crazy, just a little bit. Okay, because I'm going for that subtle light. Alright, I moved that up 18 points. That's a lot for me. Okay, now, I always work with this black background. I'm going to turn it back off now. And remember, I talked about putting this in a 16:9 format. What I want to do now is give it what I call movie bars. And I don't know if that's the actual term or not, but it's one I came up with. And I'm going to go to the canvas size, and on the height, I'm going to add 2 inches. And it's set for black. No, it's not set for black. It will be set for black. Let me get my, there we go. I dropped the black. And so what we have now is much of what you would see if you went to the movie theater. They would have the top and bottom of the image, not cropped, but just the 16:9 ratio comes through looking much like this. So here we have kind of a super saturated beach picture with the movie bars on top and bottom. Now, there's one more thing I'm going to do, and I almost didn't show you guys this because it's a little complicated, but if you're still with me, then you're obviously interested. If not, that's cool, I understand. I'm going to make a couple different layers here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the sharpness. I'm going to increase the focus of this image to an almost unbelievable level, and by unbelievable, I'm not talking about sensational, just unbelievable to the eye. You know, this was taken with a very nice camera and an extremely nice lens, and this is a sharp photographic image. This is what the eye would see. But let's go ahead and remove some of these lines of ambiguity that are in Photoshop, and we're going to use a filter process. It's a 2-step process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my top layer here to overlay. And you notice that my whole image just changes. Well, it does, and it goes to crap. And a lot of people would stop and say, "Well, I don't like that, and I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna go back." Well, bear with me here because this is only 50% of the effect. Now let me back up a little bit. I made 3 identical layers of the layer that I'm working in because I need the top 2, and I want the bottom one to compare it with. So if you look over here, you can see that I've got these 2 and that third are all the same layer. Okay. So with my top layer now in overlay mode, I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to go down to this incredibly misunderstood high pass filter. And here's the high pass filter. Now you see that my image came back and it's looking pretty normal. Okay. I don't set this very high. I'm only setting this filter at about 4.5. And remember, in Photomatic's, I was talking about how they how it influences your artwork too much. A lot of what that has to do with is this internal high pass filter. You see this? It's starting to look like that, whatever they call something grunge filter. Very, very similar. So I take this back down, but I just wanted to show you that. Kind of funny. Okay, about 4.3. I hit OK. Now look at this image and look at the focus. It was a subtle difference, but wait till I click it back on what it would look like before we applied this high pass filter with the overlay mode. See that? You see how out of focus that looks? In focus, out of focus, in focus. Pretty cool, huh? So your viewer will come up to this image and they'll be like, there's something about this one I really like. And it's really, really crisp. It's really in focus. It's in more focus than the camera will allow it to be. So pretty cool. All right, I'll combine that down, and I think that that is the image. So I'm going to save it, and I want to thank you for watching. My name's Cal Gallagher, and I will produce more tutorials when I have time. Thank you for watching. Bye.